On the Road with Kelly and Bob is brought to you by Mueller Metal Roofs and Buildings. Made in America, made to last. Coming up on this episode...
Somebody told me one day that music should always cause you to do something.
Hi, we're Kelly
and Bob Phillips, and we're on the perpetual road trip of America's back roads,
where the journey is always the destination. Well, welcome to this edition of On the Road with Kelly and Bob. Now, if this is your first time listening, what we do is pretty simple.
Yeah, Kelly and I travel all over America, and as we do, we are almost always listening to music, all kinds of music, from rock to country to pop, even classical, sometimes just beautiful instrumentals.
We love music.
Yep.
And that's probably why when we drove through Jackson, Mississippi not long ago, we had to visit a music studio known as Malaco.
Sometimes called the Last Soul Company.
When I first, about 11 years old, my oldest brother said, come out on the couch, everybody. And he said, you say woo, and you say woo, and you say woo. And we said, okay. And the first time we did that and I heard the harmony, I said, well, they're going to have a hard time getting me back in school. This is it. I know I'm going to do this for the rest of my life.
Daryl Luster remembers growing up in North Carolina where, like most kids, he was fascinated by music. But Daryl's love wasn't just about the songs he heard or even the people singing them, but for the business itself.
He grew up listening to Southern black gospel, mostly published on a label called Malaco, and he knew the names of all the musicians that worked in that genre. But it was a visit to a friend's house that broadened Daryl's view of the world of music.
I didn't know that Malaco was doing blues, you know, Johnny Taylor and all that. I didn't know that they were doing that. I was raised from 75 when they started the gospel division. So that's all I knew about. And I remember seeing the albums and the logo, you know, Malaco Records. And until I went over a friend of mine's house one day and his mother was playing music. And I was hearing all of this blues music and I was like, oh, okay, that's nice. And when she would change the album, the 33 and a third, she flipped and I saw the logo. And I became offended. And I said, I thought that they were gospel. My feelings was hurt, and I said, they down there mixing salt with sugar. But they had big, huge records with ZZ Hill and Down Home Blues. They were doing that stuff, and I was like, oh my God. Which made me say again, I had to get down there and see. It was a magic going on here. Everything that they were doing, everything that they were putting out was killing the radio.
Malaco Records got its start at Ole Miss when a pharmacy student named Tommy Couch started booking bands to appear at campus parties just to make a few extra bucks. That grew to a successful recording company after Tommy got married to a girl from Jackson.
Like almost any company, in the early days, they did whatever paid the rent. But they soon became known for producing gospel music, and later, soul music. Or as Tommy Couch is famous for saying, we make black music for black people.
Daryl Luster says the success of Malaco over the decades is part of what makes Mississippi the birthplace of original American music.
The birthplace of Elvis from Tupelo, Sam Cooke from Clarksdale, Ike Turner from Clarksdale. Music is born here. So we're kind of like Mississippi is the capital of music.
During its first 20 years or so, Malaco expanded into gospel, soul, and blues. Lots of well-known rock and pop artists have walked through the doors here at Malaco. or even worked on staff at the label. Names like Bob Seger and Paul Davis.
Everyone in the music business seems to know Tommy Couch, one of Malaco's founders, and artists have been known to travel long distances to work with the legendary Gerald Wolfe Stevenson, another Malaco original who has run their studio for decades. But it was those gospel, soul, and blues artists who really put Malaco on the map.
If you're into blues, you're going to know Johnny Taylor. You're going to know Little Milton. You're going to know Shirley Brown. You're going to know Bobby Blue Bland, of course. And if you're into gospel, you're going to know the Mississippi Mass Choir. You're going to know the Jackson Southerners, the Williams Brothers. You're going to know Dottie Peoples. The list goes on and on.
Tell us about all of these awards on the wall. What are these?
On the walls.
Yes.
Everywhere you look, there's awards. In fact, they just delivered some more out here at the front door.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
What's that all about?
The ones that are out in the lobby are from samples from people like Trippie Redd, some people that I don't even know. I have to ask my children. I guess I've had too many birthdays.
I mean, there's a Whitney Houston out there.
Bob Seger.
Whitney Houston is the Preacher's Wife soundtrack, which the Georgia Mass did all of the music on that. And the Bob Seger is one of our staff writers. George Jackson wrote the song. And an interesting part of that, they did the demo at Muscle Shows. Bob Seger wanted to do the song, so he said, I'm gonna cut this. And he kept trying to get it, and he never could get the feeling that was on the demo. So he ended up saying, well, I'll just use the demo.
What was that song?
Old Time Rock and Roll. So many other songs like Ring My Bell, out of here, Mr. Big Stuff, Groove Me, all of that came right out of here.
Over the years, Malaco survived and expanded by buying other record labels. Names like Apollo Records, home to Mahalia Jackson, Savoy Records, Atlanta International, and Muscle Shoals, often acquiring those labels' artists with the sale.
Now, more than 50 years after it was founded, Malaco is experiencing new success, partly due to its huge recording library. Daryl Luster says Malaco is still in it for the long haul, because music will always be an important part of life.
A lot of places that we talk about now, Stax, a lot of these places, Motown, where it happened, are museums now. And the one thing that I'm proud about is that we're not a museum here at Malaco. We're working every day. We're still doing what they started over almost 60 years ago, and we're still doing it today. Those other places you just walk through and see where it used to be done, we're still doing it. I heard Tommy Sr. say one day, who is the founder, surrounded myself with good people. So when he did that, you could always look for success. Tommy Jr. is now the president, and he took that format, but realizing that we're in another generation, but he still found out how to continue and be successful. Now with the great catalog that we have, we're into another dispensation of sampling, which makes a whole lot of money. Then we have a large catalog which people want to sample from, and it just goes on from there. And then we were able to acquire other companies along the way, so which makes us the largest independent record company in the world.
From birth, or maybe even before, Daryl Luster's life has revolved around music, and it still does, maybe even more so today.
But he still thinks back on that day when his brother taught him to sing, and that was a moment that truly changed his life.
I don't remember a time without music, but it never hit me that I could do it until I got on the couch with my oldest brother and he taught us to sing. Because everything that I am is because he believed in me. And I wasn't satisfied with just singing. I wanted to know the business.
It was absolutely amazing. While we were there, we got to tour the entire facility, and there were pictures all over the walls of our favorite artists, my favorite artist.
Yeah, well, our favorite artist. I mean, going way, way back, because this place has been around for a long time. As always, there was a lot more to this story.
What in the world and why would you leave North Carolina and come here? It's indicative of the music that is here. Because I heard when I was a little boy in 1975, I heard the first Jackson Souvenirs record. Somebody invited me to their house and said, "You got to hear this." And I was like, there's nothing being done like that, nowhere. And so I would say that record from that day, I said, I got to get down there. I got to see
When you
that
were a
place.
little kid?
I was a kid, and I heard "Lord Remember Me" by the Jackson Souvenirs, and it just blew me away. And Frank, then, who was the lead singer of the song, sounded a whole lot like Donny Hathaway. And I said in an interview one time that you couldn't be a Christian and sound like Donny Hathaway. Not back in those days. You get in trouble for that, you know. And so it was just something that we had never heard. There was a lot of class in the recording. I tell people all the time, before the Jackson Souvenirs and before Frank took over the reins here, you would just start off a song, and you start singing. But Frank put intros and endings and stuff. We didn't do things like that in the beginning. So I heard something that I had never heard before in my life, and my goal was to get to Mississippi.
Tell me about the founder of this company and how he came to found this.
He booked bands at Ole Miss, and in his words, for a little money, spending money, and started booking bands. And it turned into people having not having demos, so to speak, and saying, you know what, maybe we need to start a studio where we could record them and they could have a demo. And then they started that, and that just kind of became good.
Was he just a college kid or that age at that point?
In the beginning, yes.
Did he just have an ear for this or what?
He had a gift. We call it a gift.
Why was this record company, this studio, all the things that go with it successful?
I think it was because that this was something that they loved. It's that thing again, loving, and it's in their heart, and they really wanted to do it, and they wanted to do it perfect. They wanted to do it right. And so now you get to the ear, because Tommy Sr. did and does have an ear for good artists and good music. And so he knows when something is good. So he was able to do that very well.
Give me an idea of other companies that were acquired.
One of the oldest companies was Apollo Records, which is where you start with Mahalia Jackson and artists like that. So we acquired that. We also have one of the largest companies in the world at that time, which I remembered as well, was Savoy Records. Mm-hmm. And bringing that on was just a huge catalog. Eventually Atlanta International and some more smaller things, but they also bought Muscle Shows. And along with all of that came the studio. They were doing so much in the 80s. Malaco was doing so much recording that we had never rented to the studio to outside people. You couldn't come in. First of all, because we had so many artists and something was always going on. And then secondly, because Malaco Studios was right there in the offices where everybody was. But when they acquired Muscle Shows, they kept the studio. You come through here and you can see anybody. Little Milton. I remember stopping through one time on my way to Texas, and I was like, is that Little Milton? Is that Johnny Taylor? Everybody's here.
Can you describe soul music? How would you describe soul music?
Soul music, I've always said, is kind of self-explanatory because it's from the soul and it speaks to the soul. So that's what I say. I don't think that there's a particular sound, which could be an argument, but I feel like that what comes out of your soul and reaches somebody else's soul is soul music.
Are there a lot of studios still that record soul music?
I think that there's a studio in everybody's laptop now.
What could be better than that?
Nothing. When I was or to take it to heaven and let's do it in heaven. But yeah, we make records in heaven. But the thing about it was when I first started singing and started reading the back of albums and everything, everybody else and all of my brothers that were singing with me at the time when we were kids, they were just interested in singing and playing. I was interested in finding out what publishing meant. What did that mean? What is copyright 19? I would see somebody's name under a song, and I thought it meant that they were singing the song, but that they were the writer. So I got stumped about that. I would say, that's not who's singing that song. So I went to the library, 12 years old, walked to the library downtown Durham, North Carolina, and rented a book called This Business of Music. And I read it from cover to cover over and over and over, and wanted to find out what was published and what was copyright. So all of these things, and that's why I'm happy on this side of the fence as well.
What was the reason that this place had the magic happening when there were a lot of people who wanted it but never achieved it?
Well, I still ultimately believe in God. That He has His hand on you, and He blesses your endeavors. When your heart, when you really want to do something, and God says, and then I've got a plan. I think He says good music. Because regardless of whether it's gospel, whether it's blues, if it's good music, it's still going to do something for people, and so that's ultimately, what we want to do is we want people to feel good about the music that we produce.
How long do you think Malaco can continue? Do you think there's a finite end, or?
I don't know, because it's a family. Tommy Sr. started it. His son now runs it. I would stay here and work for Vivian, which is Tommy Jr.'s granddaughter. I would work for her if I could keep doing it with a cane.
But what about the music business? Is the music business? I mean, it's we all know how much it's changed.
Absolutely.
Is it dissolving itself over a period of time, or what?
No. My boss told me. Tommy Jr. told me one time. This was scary, because I was out there thinking one day, and I said, we have a huge warehouse and it's full of CDs. Is this going away? And he said this, which was profound: music will always be around. The packaging is going to be different. And so now the packaging is in the clouds, different places. So you don't see it, CDs. They're not CD players in cars. Then of course there are no cassette players in there, but music will always be around. That will never go anywhere.
What is it about music that brings people together?
Well, the words, they're joyful sounds, and sometimes with music without lyrics will bring you to it, because it just does something to you. Somebody told me one day that music should always cause you to do something. Whether it's cry, whether it's laugh, whether it's get up and go buy it. I mean, some things make you have to buy. I have to have that music. In this day and time, it's however you acquire it. It may be a little different, but if it makes you get it, then it's doing its job. I wrote a song when I first came here, and I'm gonna try to get somebody. I really want this artist to do it, Framing the Red to do it. That says, and it's really not my song. That's why I want them to do it. I was born in Mississippi, raised in Mississippi, been in Mississippi all my life. I believe in Mississippi, ain't leaving Mississippi. Mississippi is where I'll die.
Whoa.
That's deep.
Could we get a session together right now? Let's start recording this right now.
Later on in life, my attorney was talking to my youngest daughter, and he said, find something to do that you love and enjoy, and you'll never work a day in your life. I said, he's talking about me. And so now I come to work every day, and you can't punish me. My boss right there, he can't say, go in the studio and record a song. I'll be like, okay. Produce a record. Yeah. Call a radio station. I love talking to people. I love talking to radio and trying to get them to play our music when they say, well, I'm not so sure. Oh yeah, you gotta play this. I'm telling you. Trust me.
Are you living your dream?
What are you talking about? Don't pinch me, because I might wake up. I'm serious. I literally am.
And I think we can identify with that too. I mean, don't pinch us, because we don't want to wake up. This is way too good. Thanks for joining us for this week's edition of On the Road with Kelly and Bob. Don't forget to download that free Odyssey app. You can listen to us anytime, anywhere.